I want to go now to the Ipsos poll. This is in the 9 papers out today, that less than a third of Australians support changing the date of Australia Day. Now, that survey published today, 28% support moving the date, while 82% of respondents said that they were proud of Australia. Joining me tonight to discuss this and more, Executive Director of the IPA, John Roskam, and Sky News host, Rita Panahi. John Roskam, I hope you had a terrific break and you're raring to go. Culture wars kicking off January, as they do always, sadly, in recent days. I want to go to that poll because it's been a bit unpalatable for the Change the Date crowd today, because mainstream Australians are not only patriotic, but they're proud. They don't want that date to move. I want to know what you make of that poll, but I also know the IPA is very much, aren't you, with a project this year, picking up that sentiment of the quiet Australian.
Hello, Peter. Happy New Year. You're exactly right that every year these topics and issues seem to get bigger and bigger, and every year, as you've been talking through the program, it's revealed that political elites are further and further away from the views of mainstream Australia. The Ipsos poll that you mentioned is consistent with the poll that the IPA commissioned, not just about Australia Day, but about whether Australians are proud of their country, which they are, whether they are proud of our history, which we are. And your point that the IPA and other organisations are focused on our culture, focused on our freedoms, focused on what seems to be a wholesale onslaught against the Australian way of life. And as you made clear in your conversation with Andrew Laming just then, the left won't go away, the left aren't satisfied, the left won't negotiate, the left don't seek to represent the views of mainstream Australia. They will argue and argue and argue, and we must put the view of mainstream Australians clearly and articulately, which we're doing. And when we ask Australians what they think, it's clear what they do think. They're proud of the country and they don't want Australia Day moved.
Rita Panahi, you're a very proud Australian, but you're also part of the migrant story because your family voted with their feet to come here. What do you make of this continued, Barney, this time of year, every year now, it seems?
Oh, it is so tiresome, and it is just maddening how deep that gulf is between media opinion, elite opinion, as John called it, but everyone in an elite sport, pop culture, the arts, and particularly the media, who are desperate to paint this day as something that is divisive and shameful, when the overwhelming majority of Australians, and that includes a huge majority of migrants, have enormous pride in this day. In fact, you mentioned the Ipsos poll there and the IPA Commission poll. The Guardian, the leftist Guardian, commissioned a poll on attitudes to Australia Day a few years ago, and they found that only 6% of the country's 6 have negative attitudes towards Australia Day, and migrants are even more proud of the country and even more proud of the national holiday and wanting to maintain it on January 26 than those born here. So that just shows you the migrant pride that exists in Australia. So this suggestion that every Indigenous person has an objection to this day and every Indigenous person is offended by it is just so false, and I think that's what's really harmful and divisive, this false narrative that the activist class have been pushing for years now.
I want to go to the other thing that happens around this time of year. Of course, everyone goes back to school. Those parents of kids and grandparents will know exactly what I mean. It's very interesting. You know, we focus on the curriculum, don't we, John? We talk about what we teach Australian kids, and we know how much the left have got their tentacles into the curriculum, which is why, you know, getting back to teaching the basics and doing it well is so important. There's been an attempted boycott of NAPLAN in Queensland by the Queensland Teachers Union. It's been slapped down by the Queensland Industrial Relations Commission, labelling the boycott, which had been almost unanimously endorsed by state school teachers last year, as unlawful industrial action, meaning that teachers have to get back to teaching for the NAPLAN, and the NAPLAN tests will now proceed. Why is it, John Roskam, that the teachers' unions are so opposed to teaching children or testing children about how much they've actually learnt? Why would we be worried about that?
Oh, Peter, speaking for someone who worked for a state education minister here in Victoria, someone who worked for a federal education minister, there's a very simple answer. It's about accountability. My children are going back to school this week, and I want to know what they're learning. I want to know how they rank against their peers, and I want to know what their teachers, who uniformly are very good teachers, expect of them. And that's what the NAPLAN does. For years, we've been arguing about testing. Australia, as we spend more and more money, falls further and further behind like countries. And this test debacle, what the Queensland Union of Teachers is trying to do, just reveals that the education system by teachers is thought about as something for them, not for students and not for parents, and that can't be right. And this is a welcome decision that they have to go and teach the test.
Rita, I want to go just very briefly to the issue of the Australian Open. I know there's quite a bit of consternation in Melbourne about how robust the quarantine procedures are, risking it all for a tennis match, considering where we were last year. The Andrews government's facing calls today, though, to reverse the decision to renew the operating licence of Unified Security. People will remember that from a lot of the focus we had on this show last year. This is the mob that got $30 million in 6 hours flat from the Victorian government. Briefing notes given to Police Commissioner Shane Patton show Victoria Police were aware of concerns surrounding the business background of Unified's owners. Now, big deal, bungling of hotel quarantine, our second wave, Rita. Can we trust the mob in charge of things here with the Aussie Open? But also, how does Unified Security keep a licence in Victoria?
Well, they weren't even a preferred provider when they were given tens of millions of dollars of taxpayers' money. No, I don't trust them, to give you a short answer, no.
All right, Rita Panahi, John Roscombe, great to have you back on my first show this year, and I am sure I will see you both throughout the year.
Thank you.